You never want to start your week off with the coach that you cover being mad at you, the head coach. But sometimes that's the reality that we live in, that I live in. I'm going to play you a soundbite from Monday's press conference here in a second with Coach Bret Bielema. Of course, they went on the road to Indiana. They lost 63-10. When you win, those press conferences are easy, they're fun, they're loose. When you lose, they get a little more tense. We're going to play the full clip. It's a little longer. It's about a minute and a half, but we can do that on this show. So we're going to play you the full clip, and you're going to hear an exchange between me and the head man, Bret Bielema. Roll it, guys. Coach, how do you make sure that one game doesn't turn into two?
Like you didn't like this answer?
Like last year, you lose on the road at Oregon, turns into Minnesota. How do you make sure that?
What do you want me to say?
Well,
I just answered it. Didn't I get the exact same question? So I didn't. To answer it to you, I think the biggest thing we have to do is understand that Saturday happened, right? And to process it, you have to watch the film, you have to communicate it, you have to take ownership in it, starting with me, and then I think this group, as experienced as they are, they've been through this a little bit, right? So maybe not to the extent of that score, but the process of it, the understanding of Oregon last year and the Minnesota repercussions afterwards, for sure. They've all lived it, but I think one of the things that really has to happen is there's a reason we do things a certain way. I literally brought them over Sunday, and the first thing I showed them was Sunday schedule. The reason we do Sunday schedule is win or lose, we come over, we take account for what happened on Sunday, and we turn the page Sunday night to move into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That didn't happen any differently yesterday than it did when we beat Duke, right? Like it didn't happen any differently than when we had success and failure last year. It's just kind of how we do things. The results were what we wanted. I didn't say anything about it. We had a tie for the longest winning streak in college football, right? Like, that's awesome, but it sucks when it ends. Like I get it. Like I want it to hurt. I was very happy to see as many guys as I saw pissed in the locker room afterwards, right? And somber on Sunday. I didn't have a group coming in, bopping to the music. It was they're disappointed. So that's the answer.
So he was not too happy. He clearly thought that he had been asked that same question. You heard my question, but I'm going to say it again just so we're clear. I asked him, how does one game not turn into two? With the context, last year you lost on the road at Oregon, and that led to a Minnesota loss the next week. That was the question I asked. The question that he's referring to was, how do you have urgency but not panic? Not the same question. Just because he wanted to answer it the same way doesn't make it the same question. So did I appreciate that? Not really. What I did appreciate was after the press conference was over, he came up to me and he said he wasn't trying to be a wise Alec. I don't think I can say the word even on this program. I'll have to ask management for clarification. But he came up to me afterwards. He said he wasn't trying to be wise. He just thought he was asked the same question. I told him it was a different question. And that was it. And you're not going to get a lot of coaches that will come up to you afterwards and say, hey, didn't mean to be that way. Because this happens a lot. It happens a lot with a lot of different coaches. It's part of the job. Nothing's personal. But I appreciated that from him afterwards. So me and Bret Bielema, we're good. Now that we're through that, should we get to what the rest of the show is? Yeah, we're going to recap Indiana. Not good. We're going to talk about USC. How can Illinois bounce back? I'm not really sure. Oklahoma held off Auburn this weekend, and Texas Tech took a big hold of the Big 12. And we're going to look ahead to an outstanding slate of games this weekend, and we're going to make some game picks like we do as always. We bounced back a little bit against the spread this past weekend. All right, let's get right to it. Illinois and Indiana, Saturday night in Bloomington. It did not go well for Illinois. 63-10, the final score. I was trying to think of words to write down that would describe this game. Beat down, butt kicking, throttling, shellacking. You probably have a few other choice words that you can think of. But man, this game was over fast. It got bad early, and then it got even worse later, especially in the second half. Defense was terrible. The offense could not move the ball whatsoever. Let's start with the defense. Man, they couldn't get a stop to save their lives. Indiana was doing whatever they wanted. Fernando Mendoza He was great in the game. He's the Indiana quarterback. He was very efficient, threw it all over the place to a bunch of different receivers, and he was just really good. These are his stats against Illinois, 21-23. It's not going to get much better than that. He was really good of spreading the ball and taking what Illinois gave to him. I noticed watching on TV, I wasn't at the game, but watching on TV, Illinois played a lot of inside leverage on the outside, and those Indiana receivers really took advantage. They feasted on the outside because they were shaded towards the sidelines, and Mendoza was able to hit them. The two guys that we talked about last week that were going to be concerned for this Indiana offense, Omar Cooper Jr., Elijah Surratt, and hey, they were great. They were great at wideout. These are what they did to Illinois. And Omar Cooper Jr. left the game, I think it was the end of the first half. I don't think he returned. He did that in about a half, and Elijah Surratt, he was showing off why he was a preseason All-American for a reason. And, if the passing game for Indiana wasn't bad enough for Illinois, the running defense might have been worse. It might have been worse. Indiana just pounded them on the ground. They came in averaging over 300 yards of rushing per game, and they hit up Illinois for 312. And it was the big play on the ground that really killed Illinois. You can see 20-plus yard rushes. There were 3 of them. I think they had a 4th that was like 18 yards long. So Indiana, offensively, they were doing whatever they wanted. The injuries in the secondary for Illinois didn't help. I mean, they really were down to their last guys that made the trip to Bloomington out in the secondary. But that wasn't the reason that they lost the game. I wrote down in my notes, during the game, does Indiana have a single 3rd and long in this game? So I went back and looked, and 3rd and long to me is 3rd and 7 or more. They had 3 in the game. The first 2 were on the first 2 drives, and then 1 was when they were already up 56-10 in the game. They converted 1 out of 3 on those. So Indiana was never in a pressure situation really all game. I want to read you the Indiana offense's drive chart, and you might want to play some sad music in the background here. Punt, and then Illinois punts. They block it for a touchdown. That opened the scoring for Indiana. Touchdown, punt, and this is where it gets really fun. Touchdown, 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 end of game. That's how you get 63-10. Couldn't stop them at all after the first couple of drives. Couldn't stop them. Offensively for Illinois, almost as bad as the defense, maybe as bad. They had 2 yards running the football. 2 yards on 20 carries. 0.1 yards per rush. And this has been a season-long thing. They haven't been able to get anything going running the ball. And a lot of it is because of the offensive line. Some of it is, situation of game. They weren't running the ball a ton because they were down 30 pretty quickly. So maybe that skews it a little bit here in this game, but boy, they couldn't get anything going on the ground. Lawfrey, he didn't play. He tried to warm up beforehand, didn't think he was quite right, so he didn't play. Caden Fagan, I mentioned it early in the season. He just looks slow. He's a slower back, but after the injuries, he just looks even slower. Can't break one at all. Like I mentioned, no push for the offensive line at all. Indiana had guys running free all night. And Luke Altmaier had no time either. He was scrambling, and we heard a little bit about he wasn't great with his eyes. He had his eyes on the rush a lot, and it's hard to blame him. He got sacked 7 times in this game. He got sacked 7 times, and of course you're going to be worried about the rush if you're hitting the ground that many times, especially when the running game has not done anything all game and really all year except for certain parts. But Luke Altmaier did say after the game that he still trusts the offensive line to get it going here later on in the season.
being on your back a lot and just isn't the most comfortable feeling in the world. But I get back up and I'm very confident in the next play, and I'm very confident in my 5 offensive linemen. They're going to do their best to get in the right call and protect that thing up. And but I didn't help our team out, either in a lot of those situations. But yeah, I've seen a lot of ball, a lot of different defensive looks, and I got to execute our calls within different front structures of them trying to attack our offensive line and our protections and things like that, and pressures and stuff like that. So very comfortable. I got to make the plays when they're there.
Where do we go from here if we're Illinois? I'm really not sure. I don't know. It's got to be hard to bounce back from this. They're going to try to do it this weekend. I don't know what they can do here. They're 3-1. Season's not over by any stretch, but I mean, look at 2 of the 3 next games. It could get bad pretty quickly. It could, especially if you don't win on Saturday. We're going to get to that game. But I want to talk about a revision of expectations for Illinois here. I think you have to. I think you have to. It's your first real test, and you fail it miserably. As an Illinois fan, are you okay with 8-4 or 9-3 this year? Historically, you should be. I'm not sure that a lot of fans are when they had, at least a little bit of hope of, getting through the Big Ten and maybe making a college football playoff. I think you have to, start thinking that, hey, 8-4, 9-3 might be possible this year, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's a step back. I think usually that's what this Illinois program should be striving for. But of course, there was a lot of high expectations heading into this year, and for good reason. All right, let's be done with that game. 63-10, we're done with Indiana. Great slate on Saturday. Auburn and Oklahoma. Oklahoma wins it 24-17. It was the revenge game for Jackson Arnold. He didn't get it done for Auburn. 24-17, Oklahoma wins. A late safety actually covered the spread for us here, so that helped out our record. This was a slugfest. It was a slugfest of a game. None of the offenses really didn't do much for a lot of the game. It was just slow. Neither was consistent, and the quarterbacks they looked okay. Jackson Arnold and John Mateer, they both played, I would say, well. Did they do anything outstanding? No, but John Mateer, it was good enough to win. He also carried the ball a lot and was not as effective as he was maybe against Michigan, but still effective on the ground. And we talked about it last week. Could Oklahoma stop the Auburn rushing attack the way that they stopped Michigan? And they did just that. Auburn couldn't really get anything going on the ground. Oklahoma really packed it in and tried to force Jackson Arnold to throw the ball to beat them. And he couldn't do it that effectively. 1.9 yards per rush. It's really hard to win games like that if you're Auburn, especially with Jackson Arnold, who is a big part of the run game. They run a lot of quarterback runs. He finished with minus 11 yards rushing. Really hard to win a game like that. And Oklahoma, I think they're solidifying themselves as one of the better teams in the SEC. Auburn, while improved, I just don't think they're quite there yet. Maybe next year when they get a few more guys in on offense and can sling the ball a little bit better. All right, Texas Tech and Utah. This was just a beatdown for Texas Tech. Texas Tech just walked into Salt Lake City and got it done against the Utes. Defensive battle in the first half. I think it was 10-3. And then to start the second half, Texas Tech's quarterback, Baron Morton, is out. He gets hurt. Didn't matter. The freshman, Will Hammond, just comes in and lights up the Utah defense. The Texas Tech offense was much better when Will Hammond came into the game. You can see his stats here now. He got better as the game went on, every single drive, and he was leading them up and down the field. Very impressed with Will Hammond to come in as a freshman and play well in a tough road environment. Utah just looked lost on offense. They really did. Devin Dampier, he couldn't do anything. He didn't really have the passing game going, and then he couldn't really get the quarterback running game going either because they weren't threatened on the outside. really nothing going. They didn't move the ball really at all. A lot of 3-and-outs, a lot of punts for Utah, and even when they got close, they would turn it over. 4 turnovers against a really good team like Texas Tech, not going to be good enough. And it wasn't. Texas Tech really took advantage of those turnovers and won the game, and I think have a firm hold now on the Big 12. Again, crazy conference. Don't know what's going to happen or how it's going to end up in the Big 12. But Texas Tech brought in a lot of new guys, and they're proving that it can work. So Texas Tech, really impressed with them. On the road against a good coach and a good Utah team, and they stomped them. Michigan, Nebraska. This was supposed to be Nebraska's coming out party. Everybody wanted it so bad for the Cornhuskers. You think, Michigan, they're good, but they're not that good. We have a lot of hopes for this year. Year 3 under Matt Rule. It's supposed to be a big year. Michigan just took it to them. It ended up being 30-27 in a closer game, but Michigan really did have control of this game most of the game. They're just a wagon on the ground. You can't stop them unless you're Oklahoma. They just run the ball all the time. That's all they do is run the ball, and they're very explosive on the ground. Most of the time you think explosive plays, you're thinking shots down the field through the air. No, they break off long runs all the time, every game. They had a 75-yarder. Underwood had a 40-yarder. They're explosive on the ground. They don't need Bryce Underwood to throw too much to win games. For Nebraska, I'm done with Dylan Raiola. He is very hard to watch for me. His stats don't show it. His stats look great, but he's got the Mahomes thing. He wants to look like him on the field and in the way he plays. But man, step into a throw. We don't need all this sidearm stuff all the time. I would be losing my mind if I was a Nebraska fan just by the way he plays. I still think he's a good player, but I just can't take watching him because every single throw is off balance, falling away, or sidearm. And I think it hurts him. I think it hurts his game. I think it hurts Nebraska. All right, we're going to get to games around the country this week as well. Let's see our season record. We bounced back a little bit last week. 7-3 straight up right now on the year against the spread, 4-6. But we were 2-1 last week, so we're chipping away. We're chipping away, trying to get back to 500, get over 500 this year. Boy, don't get pulled to the apple orchard or a wedding or work this weekend. If you have work, call out. If you have a wedding, unfriend that person. If your significant other wants you to go to an apple orchard, tell them that you have to come up with an excuse because we have a great slate here on Saturday. Bama, Georgia, Alabama walking into Athens, 6:30 kick. Ooh, this is always a fun game. Last year was one of the best games I've ever watched between these two, and this game really could change the landscape of the SEC. Georgia, clearly the number 1 team in the SEC right now, and if Georgia does win, what if Alabama has 2 losses before October even starts? I mean, what happens in Tuscaloosa? I know people would not be happy. When we've talked about Georgia so far this year, we've asked the question, can they run the ball? And they've run it pretty well so far this year. Even against Tennessee, who is obviously the best competition that they've faced so far this season. Can they run the ball? Can they do it effectively? I think they can. I think they can run the ball. They've got really good backs in rotation, and they've got a revamped offensive line that I know Kirby Smart really likes. If this game's close late, though, I think it's going to be all on Ty Simpson's shoulders. I think he's going to have to make a throw, make a play that will win Alabama the game. If it's close late, can he get the ball to Ryan Williams? A bunch. That's what they did last year. Jalen Milroe got the ball to Ryan Williams, and he just made plays. Can he get it to him? And I know he's been banged up a little bit this year, but he should be good to go for this game. Get the ball to Ryan Williams, Ty. Nobody believes in Ty, but he's been pretty good this year, even against Florida State when they just got walloped down in Tallahassee. He was still pretty good considering his first start. I've liked what I've seen from Ty Simpson. For the prediction, let's do it. I went back and forth, but I kind of wanted to pick Alabama, but I like that Georgia's been tested by Tennessee on the road, still was able to get it done. They came back. I'm going to take Georgia. And if I'm going to pick Georgia, I'm going to lay the 2.5 points. I just like that they proved that they can win in a lot of different ways, even if they can't run the ball. Against Tennessee, they won behind the arm of Gunnar Stockton. So I think they can win in multiple ways. I'll pick Georgia. And if that happens, the conversations are going to get real gross in Tuscaloosa. The one that I'm more excited for, Oregon and Penn State, the whiteout. 6:30 kick, State College, Beaver Stadium, 107,000 about, all wearing white for Penn State. Man, it is now or never for Penn State. Now or never. They've got 2 games on the schedule that they have to prove everybody wrong. Nobody thinks they can win a big game. Nobody thinks they can win a national championship or Big Ten championship. None of that. This is one of the games. They played nobody in the non-conference and then had a bye week, and now they have Oregon. Now or never. Ton of guys back. They have a QB that they believe in. Nobody else believes in him, but Penn State does. It's a can-not versus a have-not for Drew Aller and Penn State this year. Can they not beat these top 5 caliber teams? I know Oregon's 6, but top 5 caliber. Or have they not? I tend to think they have not that they cannot. Most of their top 5 problems are against Ohio State and then Michigan when they were cheating. But when Michigan wasn't cheating, they were beating them. It's an interesting game for Drew Aller and Penn State. James Franklin under a lot of pressure always to get over the hump. Can they do it at home in a whiteout against a really good Oregon team? Now, Oregon has been really good all year. Penn State, they've struggled against inferior opponents. Oregon's been blowing out teams that they should be blowing out. And they've done it all year, even to open Big Ten play against Northwestern a couple of weeks ago. They have a pretty unknown quarterback. At least he was unknown for the most part heading into this season. Dante Moore, but he's been really good. He's been efficient. He's been getting a lot of people involved. He's a really good player, and he's made Oregon a lot better than maybe I expected them to be heading into this year. I thought they'd take a slight step back. I thought they'd certainly be in the playoff picture, but a slight step back because we didn't know what Dante Moore was going to be. We have a better idea now, but we're really going to find out on Saturday night. Can he make a big-time throw in a big-time moment on the road? Can't hear. Can he do it? We're going to find out. All right, the prediction. I'm going to pick Penn State. Do I believe in it? Not really, but I'm going to pick them. I'm going to pick Penn State to finally get over the hump against a top 5 caliber team. It's not Ohio State, but it'd be a good start. I'm going to pick Penn State to win. I think it'll be tight, though, so I'll take Oregon to cover, and that's kind of my my safety net in case Penn State can't get it done yet again. But I'm going to pick Penn State to win. We'll see what they can do. All right, we don't have a ton of time. We can't get completely into this game, but I do think Ole Miss is going to beat LSU this weekend. Technically not an upset. Ole Miss is favored. If you look at the rankings, it's an upset. I think Ole Miss is going to get it done. I really like Trinidad Chambliss. He's their backup quarterback that they've been playing the last couple of weeks. He's really exciting to watch. And LSU, they're really still trying to figure things out offensively. They got a little bit back to what they wanted to last week, but I think Ole Miss is going to win and cover that 1.5 points. Okay, USC and Illinois. The Illini better be ready. They better be ready. This game is make or break for them and for their season, probably in the eyes of a lot of their fans. Because if they go to 2-2 with Ohio State looming in a couple of weeks, you start to worry about the season as a whole. This really could be a hinge point for Illinois and USC, who's trying to prove themselves after a few years of not being great under Lincoln Riley. So where are Illinois' advantages in this game? I think it has to be through the air. If they're going to win this game, they have to do it through the air. And that's scary because they haven't protected Luke Altmaier at all. But you can't run on this USC defense. They are big, they are long, and they're nasty up on the defensive line. So if you can protect for Luke Altmaier, you don't have to run too much. I think they can be had through the air. The worry, though, is that they can't protect, and Luke Altmaier ends up on his back 7-8 times like he did against Indiana a week ago, who I don't think has as good of a defensive line as USC. USC's really built that up. I think it has to be through the air. Defensively for Illinois, it's another run game that they have to stop. Another run game that they failed that test last week against Indiana. Hoosiers went up and down the field on them on the ground. Can they stop USC's rushing offense? They haven't handed it off that much, but they have a ton of yards. Their yards per attempt are great, and they've scored a bunch of touchdowns on the ground. Can they stop them? It's been soft up front for the Illinois defensive line so far this year. I think that's where this game hinges, is can you protect Luke Altmaier, and can you stop the run? You don't have to hold them to under 100 yards, but you can't let them run for 200 or 250 on you. Quarterback for USC, another relatively unknown guy heading into this year. He was a big-time recruit for them, Jaden Mayava. He's been pretty good, efficient at quarterback. I liked what I saw from him on Saturday against a decent Michigan State team at home. He's a lot to handle, especially if you can't stop USC's run game. Here's what Barry Lunney and Aaron Henry had to say on Monday about this USC team and where they think they can try to take advantage or what they have to stop.
They've built a really athletic defense that's long and has got a lot of stature to them, and it's an impressive physical a bunch. And then they play within a very well-coached scheme and confident in what they're doing. But I'd say that's the thing that jumps out to me is just the physical presence they have across the D-line, the length that they have on the D-line at all positions. They're very lengthy and very athletic.
Their tailbacks are ridiculous. The quarterback is, like I've been telling you guys, I think Mendoza's NFL quarterback. Mensa's an NFL quarterback. And this young man is, he's what they're asking him to do, and he's operating at a high clip, and he's throwing to some dudes out there this is another group of wide receivers that are problematic just from their speed, how they go up and get the football. They can cause a lot of chaos for a play caller like myself because you talk about one-on-one matchups. It's no longer a 50-50 ball, right? A lot of their one-on-ones have been 90-10.
All right, so some injury news. We know that the defensive backs were devastated against Indiana. Xavier Scott, he's out likely for the season. He won't be back maybe until the end of the year, and that's a big maybe. Matt Bailey, he went out against Indiana. He's probable to play. Torrey Cox, same thing, probable to play. And then Aiden Lawfrey should play on Saturday. So you're getting some guys back in the defensive backfield, and then you get your starting running back. So a much healthier Illinois team heading into this. I just don't know how you can pick Illinois to win this game after what we saw on Saturday against Indiana. So I'm not going to. I'm going to pick USC to win. It's a big number on the road, 6.5. I'm going to pick USC to win, but I don't think Illinois will get blown out again. I don't think that. I don't think they're a bad team. I don't think the Indiana game was exactly what they are. I think it was a bad game against a good team. I think Illinois can cover that 6.5, but I just don't know how you can pick them to bounce back from a 53-point loss. So I'll take USC, and USC's a really good team. I just don't really trust Illinois on the defensive or offensive lines. You have to have it for Illinois. You have to have it. Again, don't think they'll get blown out again, but it's a hinge point, like I said, for this season and for this team. All right, before we get out of here, one quick thought on the kickoff times of games post-realignment, conference realignment. This is one of the unintended consequences of having these coast-to-coast conferences. Last week, Michigan State played at USC. It was an 11 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. That's insane. The game ended at like 2:30 in the morning in East Lansing. I understand how TV windows work, trust me, but how's that good for anybody but the home team? It's not good for Michigan State. It's brutal for Michigan State fans. It's not USC's fault or choice other than destroying the Pac-12 to come to the Big Ten, but they obviously don't pick the kick times. Now this week, they get the flip side of it. 11 a.m. kick here locally. For USC, that's a 9 a.m. start. Pretty tough to navigate for the Trojans, and the worst part is that I think it could play a role in the game, and nobody wants that. The only way to not have this happen is, I don't know, maybe have teams on the West Coast all play each other, possibly in a dedicated conference or something like that. I don't know, something to think about. That's our show. Inside the Illini, big game for Illinois coming up on Saturday. Could determine how the rest of their season goes. Really excited. 11 a.m. kickoff. Hope you're there. I'll be there. Really looking forward to it. Enjoy Saturday. Don't get dragged to an apple orchard. Make sure you're sitting inside watching these games. We'll see you next week.